Okay, hello once again, mga ma'am and sir. Welcome to my channel. Now, I will discuss to you about accounting equation. So, if you can see on my screen, this is the basic accounting equation. It is the assets equals liabilities plus shareholders equity. So, before anything else, ano po ba ang tinatawag na accounting equation? Okay, accounting equation is a basic principle of accounting and a fundamental element of the balance sheet. So if mapapansin po ninyo doon sa balance sheet is nag-a-appear po doon si assets, si liabilities, and si shareholders equity. Okay, ano po ba ang purpose ng accounting equation? Why do we need to understand thoroughly the accounting equation? It is said that an accounting equation sets the foundation of double entry accounting. So, in order for us to understand better the transaction and para po natin ma-analyze ang transaction, kinakailangan alam po natin ang accounting equation. Because the accounting equation is that whatever the changes or the effects happened at the other side must have an equivalent effect to the other side of the accounting equation. The assets must equal to the liabilities plus shareholders equity. For every change to an asset account, there must be an equal change to a related liability or shareholders equity account. Or kung hindi naman po, pwede namang hindi maapektuhan si liabilities at si shareholders equity, but then an increase in assets must also have a decrease in assets in order for the accounting equation to be still equal. Now, it is important to keep the accounting equation in mind when performing journal entries. As a small business owner, it is important to understand information about your company's finances. One important thing to look at it is that how much of your business assets are financed with debt versus paid for with capital. So ito po ay isa sa mga reason kung bakit mayroong tinatawag na accounting equation. So again, the accounting equation shows the relationship between your business's assets, liabilities, and equity. So by using the accounting equation, you can see if your assets are financed by debt or business funds. The accounting equation is also called the balance sheet equation. Kasi nga po, lahat ng nakikita ninyo dito ay balance sheet accounts. Now, balance sheet equation parts. So nabanggit ko na po kanina, merong assets, liabilities, shareholders, equity. So basically, ang gagawin po natin sa accounting equation is we will try to understand it much better para po mas madali nating maintindihan, especially for those students na nanonood ngayon at doon din sa mga ma'am and sir natin na mayroong small business. The accounting equation can be like this. The assets equals liabilities plus shareholders equity, or liabilities equals assets minus equity, or equity equals assets minus liabilities. Okay, so what are the examples of assets? We have here cash, accounts receivable, inventory, property, plant, and equipment. Examples of liabilities, we have here accounts payable, short-term borrowings, long-term debt. Examples of equity, shareholders equity, we have share capital, share premium, retained earnings. So, how are we going to interpret this accounting equation based on what we understand about the assets, liabilities, and equity? The effect, we must always consider the effect of the assets, liabilities, and shareholders' equity in every transaction na ating nakaka-encounter. The assets must always equal to the liabilities and the equity so that the accounting equation will still be equal. Okay, so I have here examples of transactions na kung saan we will try to apply the accounting equation on analyzing and journalizing these transactions. So una po dyan, yung purchase of assets on cash and or on account. Okay. Purchase of assets in cash or in account. We have to take note the entity concept when we are journalizing a transaction. The owner is separate from the identity of the company itself. Now, we are journalizing at the side of the business or the company. Ang nangyaring transaction, the company purchased assets on cash. Okay. We must also remember in analyzing this particular transaction, ano po ang value na na-receive at ano naman yung yung kapares nun o yung parted with or given away in this particular example. Okay, the company received assets and then since nagbayad po siya on cash, ang value received is in assets or particular say a building or a furniture and fixtures or equipment, machinery. Ang nangyari nung bumili si company ng assets is nagbayad siya ng cash. Remember that an assets have normal balance of a debit. So let's try to see here. Ang normal balance po ng assets is debit. So nandoon siya sa left side. While liabilities and shareholders' equity have credit normal balance, so nandun po siya sa right. If there is an increase in assets, ilalagay po natin si assets sa debit, sa left side. And if there is an increase in liabilities and or the equity, so mapupunta po siya sa right side as credit. Whenever there's a decrease in assets, of course, kabaliktaran po siya, mapupunta po siya sa right side or i-credit natin siya para siya ma-decrease or mabawasan. The same way of treatment with liabilities and shareholders equity, kung mag-decrease po ito or mabawasan, kung po ilalagay po natin ito dito sa debit side or sa left side since yung normal balance niya is the credit side. So that is how we understand the normal balances of these accounts, the assets, liabilities, and shareholders' equity. Going back to the transaction, the normal balance of assets is debit. So nag-debit tayo dito ng sample natin is 120,000 at dito din is 120,000. Yeah. Example. The assets and cash. Let's take a look at the accounting equation. Assets equals liabilities plus equity. Assets has a normal balance of debit. Nag-debit tayo dito. Nag-debit tayo dito ng nag-debit tayo dito ng assets. Normal balance ni assets ay debit. So, nag-increase siya. So, ito sa ating accounting equation, nag-increase itong si assets. Okay? So, tingnan natin. 180,000. Tapos, ang i-credit natin is also an asset account, which is cash. We remember that an asset has a normal debit balance, pero since nag-credit tayo, mababawasan lamang ang ating assets. So therefore, bawasan din natin si 120,000. Normally, 120 minus 120, that is 0. Tingnan natin, may effect ba ito sa liabilities and equity? Since wala, so no. Our accounting equation is equal. Okay? Okay, so ngayon naman po, tingnan natin naman natin ang transaction when the company purchase assets on account. So how are we going to journalize and analyze the transaction? Okay, since it is a purchase on account, we will determine kung ano ang value na na-receive first the company at ano naman ang value parted with na given away. Okay, so assets ang na-receive niya, lagay natin sa debit. Since it is purchased on account, inutang, lalagay tayo ng accounts. We will recognize accounts payable as a liability to credit. The normal balance, let's say this is amounting to 50,000. Yan. Since ang normal balance ni assets ay debit at nag-debit tayo kay assets, so nag-increase siya ng 50,000. Accounts payable or liability has a normal balance of credit, and since naglagay tayo, inilagay natin siya sa credit, so nag-increase siya by 50,000. Going back to the accounting equation, which is assets equals liabilities plus equity. Nag-increase si assets by how much? 50,000. Then, liabilities, nag-increase si liabilities by how much? 50,000. May effect po ba sa equity? So, walang effect by equity. Zero. All, assets equals liabilities plus equity, balance po tayo ng 50,000. Okay, so next transaction, tingnan po natin. That is the investment of capital of the owner. The investment of the owner may be in the form of cash or other assets. Pwede din pong non-current assets like building, equipments, machinery, etc. Since investment of capital lamang nakalagay, ipagpalagay na lang po natin na invest ni owner sa business is our assets. Okay. Since assets ang kanyang ininvest, mag-i-increase din ang capital ng owner. Okay? Let's say this is a capital. Assets has normal balance of, let's say yung invest niya is 100,000. Assets has a normal balance of debit. So since nag-debit tayo dito ng assets, nag-increase si asset. Tingnan natin ang ating accounting equation. So huwag po kayong magsasawa kapag inilalagay ko pa ulit-ulit si accounting equation, because this is how we analyze the transaction, so that in other way around is nakikita po natin at nalalaman po natin yung effect ng transaction doon sa mga accounts, para natin din matitingnan na balance pa rin or na equal pa rin po ang ating accounting equation in journalizing this particular transaction. Assets nag-increase, yes. Sorry, it's 100,000. A capital is an equity account, right? So since yung equity account has a normal credit balance at nag-credit po tayo dito ng capital account, therefore nag-increase si capital. Tingnan natin. The assets must equal to liability. May effect ba si liability dito? Wala. Si equity, yes, nag-increase siya. 100,000 kasi nga po si capital ay mayroong normal credit balance. Yung normal balance niya is credit. So, still equal 100 and 100. So, tama po ang ating ginawa. Next transaction. Payment of liabilities. Okay. Payment of liabilities. Nagbayad ka ng utang. Nagbayad si company ng utang. Liabilities has a normal credit balance. Tama? Let's see. Liabilities has a normal credit balance. Since nagbayad tayo ng ating utang, mababawasan ang utang natin. Since credit ito at nasa right, para mabawasan, ilagay natin siya dito sa left or sa debit. liabilities. At since nagbayad tayo, payment, ang ibinayad natin ay cash. Normally. Let's say yung binayaran natin amounts to 50,000. Okay. Liabilities, cash, equity. Let's analyze if ano yung effect nito doon sa ating accounting equation. Assets equals liabilities plus equity. Assets, may effect ba sa assets? Yes, assets normally has a debit balance. Pero tingnan mo kung anong ginawa. Nasa right side siya or sa credit side. Since nasa credit side sa cash at asset siya, meaning nag-decrease ang ating asset. So, that must be decrease of 15,000. 50 I mean. How about liabilities and equity? Dapat balanse. Tingnan natin. Liabilities, nasa debit na siya. Normally, ano ang normal balance ni liabilities? Tingnan natin. Liabilities has a credit normal balance. Pero yung anong ginawa, nasa left side siya or nasa debit. Meaning, nag-decrease. Okay? Nabawasan. So, ang effect, less 50,000. May effect po ba sa ating equity? Wala. Walang naging effect sa ating equity dahil hindi naman siya apektado sa transaction na ito. Equal po ba? Yes. 50,000 nag-decrease si assets at nag-decrease naman si liability ng 50,000. So, correct po siya. Hopefully, nasusundan po ninyo ako. Okay, last example of transaction. Incurred operating loss. Okay, operating loss is an expense. It's part of business. Ano naman ang mangyayari? So this is another special concept na i-share ko sa inyo. Okay. Meron tayong tinatawag na expanding accounting equation. So ano naman po yung tinatawag na expanding accounting equation? So dito tayo. Yung tinatawag po na expanding accounting equation is that itong owner's equity, itong shareholder's equity, gawin natin itong owner's equity. Owner's equity, i-add lang natin dyan yung effect doon sa revenues or operation, regular operation ng business. Add revenues less expenses less drawouts. Assets plus owner's equity plus revenues minus expenses minus draws. Kung mapapansin nyo, ang in-extend lang po natin, ang in-expand natin ay ito siya. Itong revenues minus expenses minus draws or yung drawings or withdrawals ng owner. So ano po ang mayroon dito? Okay, let's put here revenues, expenses. Normally, yung expenses ay ibinabawas natin. So, we have here net income or losses. Anong nangyari? Let's say yung revenue mo, mayroon kang 100. Tapos, may expenses ka na 50. So, may income ka na 50. How about in the next example? Let's say 100 ang revenue mo. May expenses ka na 150. 100 minus 150, that must be negative 50 or a decrease in 50 pesos or a loss. Paano natin to i-analyze sa ating accounting equation? Okay. Assets plus liabilities plus equity. Unahin po muna ito natin. First example natin. Na mayroon tayong net income na 50 pesos. Okay? So, sa assets, wala na siyang effect. Kundi nandoon lamang siya. Ang effect niya nandoon lamang sa equity. Anong mangyayari ngayon? Since net income ito nag-increase, at si net income at the end of the calendar year ay isinasarado po natin ito doon sa equity account, sinasara ito po natin doon sa equity account. Ang mangyayari niyan, the equity account will increase. Tama? Okay, so how do we do that? So at the end of the year, usually, gumagawa tayo ng closing entries. Okay, ipiprempt ko ang closing entries. So yung closing entries natin dyan, since revenues is an income, mayroon siyang credit balance. Si expenses, mayroon siyang normal debit balance. Okay? Debit lang talaga si expenses. So, in order for us to close this to the equity, so ang mangyayari niyan, the revenues ilalagay natin sa debit side, expenses ilalagay natin dito sa credit side, amounting to how much yan? 50. Whatever is the difference, 100. Kasi sa left side mo, dito sa debit, meron kang 100. Dito naman sa expenses, sa credit mo, meron ka lang 50. Remember that we are going to we are going to get how much yung income na isasara or i-close natin doon sa ating equity account. Okay? 100 minus 50, so revenues less expenses, this must be income summary account, right? Yeah, income summary account is an account used to close revenues and expenses. In order for this na lahat ng revenues and expenses is papasok muna dito. And then after that, kapag okay na siya, income summary, i-close din ulit natin si income summary, mapupunta na siya sa equity. Okay, income summary 50, then take capital 50. Tingnan po natin ang nangyari. Okay, net income sa revenue, merong credit side, merong credit, normal credit na balance na. Example natin dito sa first example natin na mayroon tayong net income na 50 pesos. So yung nangyari, example, at the end of the year, mayroon tayong revenue na 100, mayroon tayong expenses na 50. So i-close natin ito to income. First step is to close it to the income summary account. So since credit ang normal balance ni revenue, ilagay natin siya sa debit or sa left side kasi nandito kasi yan siya, dapat nandito siya sa, normally kapag meron tayong revenue, pag nag-journalize at inire-record natin, is nandoon sa right side o sa credit side. So to close it to income summary account from credit or sa right side, ilalagay natin siya dito sa debit side or sa left side. 100. Make sure na pareho yung amount, 100. Expenses, normally nasa debit side siya. Since debit ang normal account niya, para siya maisara at ma-zero out, expenses natin ilalagay natin sa credit side, 50. Any difference, revenue minus 100 minus 50, that must go to the income summary account. Okay, the income summary account is a temporary account in which doon lang po siya natin ginagamit at the end of the year. Because the purpose of having the income summary account is to clear out all the accounts at the ledgers. Para po, once mag-umpisa na tayo in the following year, hindi kasi nag-a-appear si income summary sa ating financial statement. So, after that, kapag clear na po ang ledger natin, income summary account, kung ano man po ang nandiyan na account, is isinasara din po ito natin doon sa ating capital. So if there is an income, mag-i-increase si owner's equity. If there is loss, normally, mag-i-decrease. Yung effect niya is decrease to the equity account. So let's take a look at the next the next example. Mayroon siyang loss na 50. So, ano mangyayari? Tingnan natin. I-close muna natin itong si revenue. Meron siyang normal credit balance. Meron siyang normal balance na credit. Nandito siya sa right. So, ilagay natin siya sa left amounting to 100. Okay, tama. Then, expenses. Tingnan mo. Yung expenses natin is 150. Dapat. So, since normal balance na expense ay debit, dapat mailagay natin siya sa credit. So, ayan, inilagay natin siya sa credit, but amounting to 150 pesos. Tingnan natin po. Ano mangyayari sa income summary account? Since 150 ang expenses na nasa credit, dapat balance po ito. So, yung difference niya, mayroon siyang difference na 50 sa debit side. At since meron siyang 50 na difference na nasa debit side, it implicates or it means na mayroong loss of operation si company na 50 pesos. So, lalagyan natin si income summary account dito sa 50. So, bakit income summary po ang ating account title pa rin? Hindi sinabi doon na loss summary, so wala pong account na loss summary. So income summary is an account, general account na ginagamit natin sa pag-close ng account whether if the company ay nagkaroon ng income or loss. So ilalagay lang natin siya sa debit, income summary pa rin in the amount of 50 pesos, at kung mayroon namang gain, income summary account pa rin with the corresponding amount of net income. Since loss ito na 50 pesos, nandito siya sa debit side. Kaya sa debit side natin makikita si income summary account. So ano mangyayari ngayon? The income summary account. Since nandun si income summary sa debit side natin ito, mag-iba na ang ating mag-iba na ang pag-close natin sa income summary doon sa nauna nating example. Nasa debit ngayon si income summary. Remember, na isasara natin ito doon sa equity. So since debit siya, ilalagay natin siya sa right side. Income summary. Para ma-close or matanggal siya dyan. 50 pesos. Ano ang kapareha nito? Na income summary account, kanino natin siya i-close? Of course, equity. So that must be a capital bonus. Loss di po ba siya? Loss. Tingnan mo. Ayan, loss siya. So, since loss siya, si A capital ay nandito sa debit. And since ang normal balance ni capital ay credit at nandito siya sa debit side, meaning decrease in capital ang effect ng loss. So, yun. Okay, so decrease in capital. Therefore, increase increase in income or net income, yung effect po niyan sa ating sa equity, increase. While kung net loss ang operation, effect po niyan is decrease sa ating equity. Tama? How about yung expenses? Decrease in expenses. Yan. Bumaba ang yung expenses. Ano ang mangyayari niya? So, kapag bumaba ang ating expenses, ang mangyayari niyan, tataasan natin. Kasi maliit ang amount ng expenses na ating i-deduct doon sa revenue natin. Increase in expenses will of course decrease the equity. Okay? So whatever is the decrease in expenses, mag-increase po ang ating equity. Kapag naman ang mangyari niyan is nag-net loss tayo, decrease po yan sa ating equity. Yan. Take note of this. So ito yung effect dito sa equity. Net income increase, net loss decrease, increase in expenses, increase sa ating equity, increase in expenses, decrease sa ating equity. That is how we are going to analyze, and by using the accounting equation, so it will help us a lot. So this is a sample natin, incurred operating loss. So since nag-incur ng operating loss, si company dapat mag-decrease the equity. Okay, so ang effect niya, that is a decrease in equity. Okay, so what is the importance of accounting equation? So if we will try to note, yung accounting equation po natin, importante siya especially if we will try to see the operation of the company's balance sheet. Kasi po, ang accounting equation is used to pick upang magkaroon po tayo ng picture sa ating business financial situation. So, we can calculate the accounting equation to read our balance sheet. So, yung accounting equation po ay nakakatulong sa atin upang maintindihan po natin ang relationship between our financial statements. Okay? So the purpose of the balance sheet is to show the financial position of the business on any given day. So the balance sheet can tell you how much money the business has in the bank and how likely it is that the business will be able to meet all of its financial obligations. So by having an understanding of the accounting equation, so malalaman po natin if tama ba na kaya pa ba na mapunduhan ng ating asset, ang ating pambayad para sa liabilities, something ganon. So yun. So this is the explanation of the accounting equation. Yan, meron po akong ibinigay ng mga examples, and hopefully is na intindihan po ninyo ang ating ginawang discussion sa ngayon, sharing of knowledge. So if you have any questions, you can go down to the comment section, mag-comment po kayo if you have understood at mas naintindihan po ninyo ang ating sharing ng knowledge discussion in this particular topic about the accounting equation. Please don't forget to subscribe and like this video at para po mas ma-update pa po kayo sa mga further video updates natin. You can click or you can hit the bell button. Good day po and have a blessed day. So see you po.